Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes, I am.
Or what's your name, age, or pronouns?
My name is Efrain. My age is 25, and my pronouns are he, him.
All right, what are you here to debate?
Communism versus capitalism.
Okay, what about it?
So, first, of course, I'd like to start off just on defining the term so we both know where we're starting from here. Um, how do you define communism and how do you define capitalism?
Capitalism would be an economic system in which the means of production are privately owned. Communism would be an economic system in which the means of production are publicly owned.
Okay, so just means of production?
Yes, it would be private property. Private property would be means of production, so labor, land, capital, and technology.
Okay, so do you make a differentiation between private and personal property?
Yes, personal property would be like your own individual things that you use for your day to day life, not things used in the production of goods or services.
Okay, so I would say my main argument against communism would be that it is not compatible with human nature.
Oh, I don't believe in human nature, so
Okay, so can we discuss on what the term human nature means to you and to me?
I believe human nature would be saying that there's some innate thing that are innate uh, uh, behavioral patterns that humans have, and so I would disagree in this.
No, what? Sorry, I don't know if you cut out or that was it.
That was it. Human nature would be referring to some innate behavioral attributes that humans have, and I would disagree with this.
Okay, so I would say first of all, let me describe how I see it and see how you think about this. I would say human nature would be a mix of both biological and social constructs that we exist in. I know it's a bit weird to say social constructs when human nature implies that it is like innate to human beings, but I do believe that there are certain, well, human beings would be very social creatures, right? And part of that nature would be the social structures that we live under and that we create for ourselves. And of course, that's going to come back to human psychology. Um, I think human beings are not inherently, but naturally more selfish,
Thank you, Boo.
and that creates a problem with a system like communism, which would be very difficult to exist, like a system that would be very difficult to implement if human nature is in fact selfish.
Wait, yeah, so I would disagree that selfishness is inherent to human nature because I disagree in human nature, right? If you take a human and you
Yeah,
prop that human in like the woods and you raise them sans
yeah,
society, they're just going to be feral. And I would say feralness is not selfishness because there's no like it's nothingness. There's no like morality in like animals. Like an animal eating, I wouldn't call an animal eating like a bunch of another animal's carcass and not leaving any for another animal is selfish, right? They're just eating. It's just how they behave.
yeah.
There's no moral because selfishness would have to be an immoral action. I would say there's no morality tied to this. So because of this, I don't believe humans have like an innate nature. I believe humans instead have been socialized, and what I believe selfishness derives from is from like capitalism, specifically dating like driving from feudalism and like how the average serfs strive to be in the position that the feudal lords were in. When we look at other
Hmm.
societies, like the predominant societies in human history were all like tribal, and tribal societies were like hella not selfish. Like that was the whole thing about tribal living is you couldn't be selfish. So for the vast majority of human history, we haven't been selfish creatures. Like
Okay.
that's how societies have been able to flourish to where they are. If we were all selfish all the time, we would not have gotten to where we are now.
Hmm. Okay. So I would say here that I agree with you on the way you define human nature then, and I would say that given that it is a social construct like selfishness and all these more advanced human traits, um, I don't know what word I'd use to describe that exactly, but I do believe that humanity throughout the course of history has been pretty selfish. You said that it wasn't, but I do believe it has been. Not by everyone, of course. That's not something everybody is, but that is something a vast majority, a good amount of people are, and that they use that to shape society in a way that was able to manifest their own desires.
Let me just ask you, in terms of human history, what's existed
Yeah,
longer, capitalism or like tribal communal living?
I would say tribal communalism for sure.
Yeah, so I would say by nature we're definitely not selfish beings. I would just say that like when you have
Yeah.
a system that requires money to thrive, and it's a system that pushes for the maximum amount um of capital. So like the whole purpose of capitalism is to make as much as possible. And in order to make as
Yeah.
much as possible, you have to take from somebody else. This will inherently breed selfishness. And that's where I think selfishness
Hmm.
comes from. Because I've asked people this direct question. They all say no. I've said, if I were to give you uh, a home and all your food and internet and fucking healthcare and education and water and clothes, all of this for free, but asked you to work 2 days a week, would you do it? They'll be like, no, I want to do for myself. I don't want to do no, no, no. And I'm like, well, see, yeah,
Yeah.
capitalism has just made you selfish, right? Because I would gladly work 2 days a week if it meant me and everybody else had all the resources we needed. So when it comes to just like the
Of course. Yeah.
ethicalness in my mind of capitalism, I view capitalism as like wholly unethical. The hoarding of resources to commodify labor to earn wealth, I just view as an unethical thing. And that's not even describing the material conditions that capitalism forces the working class to live in.
Hmm. Um, you said in this tribal communal system, do you think selfish people don't exist, or do you think it's just
I,
not?
I I think it's way harder to be selfish because like what are you gonna do? Like everything's given to you. What do you need to be selfish to have? Like if you're one of the best ways I like to describe it is like, let's say that me and you are at a buffet, right? This is my
Yeah.
favorite way to kind of describe selfishness. Me and you are at a buffet, and we both have plates of chicken nuggets, and you finished your chicken nuggets, but I still have like a mass amount of chicken nuggets on my plate. What's easier, trying to
Hmm.
take my chicken nuggets or just going and getting more chicken nuggets from the buffet?
Going and getting more.
Yeah. So if we're in a society where our needs are met and like you need something, it's going to be way easier for you to just go get your needs than try to take it from somebody else. So selfishness
Yeah.
becomes a lot harder in these sort of systems. The only thing that would
Hmm.
that would the only thing is we still have the issue of like power consolidation. Like some people still just like have a drive to want like power, but I also think that that comes from the jealousness, the jealousy built into feudal systems, right? So it's sort
Hmm.
of like I've seen humans do this now. I want a taste of that. So I think if we can, and I think we can effectively handle that by like worker councils and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So a few points that you brought up. Well, with your hypotheticals here, I don't believe we live in a buffet. I don't believe that the world can provide everything we need. Um, well, not naturally, of course, right? So we have things that we want, like homes, air conditioning, electricity, that isn't found in the natural world in abundance so that we could just go out and get it for ourselves. It requires some system that is able to produce these things for us. Would you agree?
Uh, so I'm gonna disagree for two reasons. Um,
Okay.
One, I believe scarcity is manufactured and it's artificial.
Okay.
I believe the only thing that is required, I believe we do have plenty of resources to give to every person. The only thing that's required is manpower and infrastructure. And the only thing that's required for
Hmm.
the infrastructure is manpower. So I believe if we
Hmm.
all just did, we would all have. That's would be my contention with that.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I believe you're arguing from a very idealistic point of view. Of course, throughout history and in the modern world, that is not the system that has taken hold, and we don't live in that kind of world. Would you agree with that?
Do we not live? Yeah, we don't live in that world because of capitalism.
Okay, yeah.
But that
So
doesn't mean,
capitalism
just
was
really quickly,
system.
I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of this idea that like how do I want to phrase this? I don't like this idea that like because it's an idealistic ideology that it has
Hmm.
no merit, right? Because I would just say something being idealistic doesn't really mean
Oh,
anything.
that's not what I mean at all.
Okay.
I just mean that it's like it would be very, very different from the system we have now. So it's hard to see that system in practice or in action in today's world or throughout history.
It's hard to see it enacted. Okay.
Yeah. So of course, like the closest we've gotten to communism in this world would be like Cuba, maybe, or you could make an argument for Nordic countries, even though they are, I would
The
argue,
closest,
much
no,
more
the closest thing
capitalist.
to communism would be pre-colonial indigenous tribes. That's going to be the closest thing we would see to communism. Cuba's just
Okay.
Cuba's Marxist Leninist. So
Hmm. Well, I would argue that's a form of communism now.
no, Marxist Leninism is socialism.
Okay. Um, you said scarcity is artificial.
Yes.
Now, scarcity of what resources exactly? Because of natural, like raw resources, I agree that it is as close to not artificial as we can get because there's so much abundance of it, right? But
I
I
would say
don't
every.
believe
I mean
labor.
resources like the things necessary to live. So food, water, shelter, right? Those things are
Yeah,
necessary. Those are things we need to survive.
of
Those
course.
things are artificial.
Hmm.
We produce enough food in the world to feed everybody if we wanted to. And we produce enough, and there's enough fresh water on the world to give everybody to drink, right? The only reason we
Hmm.
don't is because we need to commodify those things for profit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would
So
say that's that. Yeah, go ahead.
I know this is gonna sound bad, right? But I view humanity as kind of like a macro organism of sorts. So I don't believe that an individual or all individuals having water or food should be a priority for the type of government and economic system we wish to implement.
I think it's the only.
Instead,
I
it
think it's
should be
the
a system.
only. I think it's the only type of government we should ever have is a government that prioritizes the basic needs of its people. I think any other type of government is a failed government, in my opinion.
Um, I would, okay, just to kind of let you know what my views are more broadly. I'm a
Sure.
transhumanist, and I,
Oh, okay. Well,
for the time being, I strongly support the advancement of the human race until we can reach a post-scarcity world. I do believe scarcity is real, and I believe that any economic system or political system that slows down the progress of humanity until we get to that point will, in the long run, cost more lives than a system that prioritizes that.
let me ask you a question. Do you think we currently produce enough food in the world to feed everybody?
Yes,
Do you think there is enough fresh water in
but
the
would
world
that
to give
diet
everybody
be
to drink?
healthy? No.
I don't know that I would agree with that. But do you think that there's enough water in the world to give everybody enough drink like clean drinking water?
Yes.
Then I wouldn't believe in scarcity. I would say that scarcity is made up by people not willing to provide those resources to the people that need them. That's what I mean when I say scarcity is
Hmm.
artificial. I mean that we have enough of these things, right? We have enough. It's about getting
Yeah.
them to people. And the reason we can't get them to people en masse is because there's no profit incentive to do that.
Hmm. So I believe with our current system, if people cared enough, those people would get food and would get water. But I don't want to say human nature, right? But people don't care enough in large enough numbers to make that happen. And
Yes,
so
I believe people
it's very
don't care
hard.
enough. But we're agreeing here. I believe people don't care enough because of capitalism. Capitalism has led people to be selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I
up
would
on
argue
Twitch?
that human
Nice.
beings are not inherently good or evil. That
I
we're
would
more like
agree.
a sponge and we kind of absorb the world around us.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Sorry, what was that?
I was just saying I would agree with you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So given this system, I believe it is much more efficient at progress, whether that be technological or progress in like what do you call it? Gathering resources and all that. We have a much better system for that than communism would.
I'm sorry, we have a much better
Part of the
system to
problem is
do
that
what?
people don't
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
to gather resources and produce things under capitalism than we would under communism.
Oh,
Because I don't
I
believe
disagree.
that.
I think the drive to produce would just come from the need, right? I think the drive, the only
Yeah.
as long as we have like you wouldn't say that in our indigenous tribes didn't have a drive to produce because they produced the things they needed. They still had that drive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They sure did. But what you're saying here was like we have enough food and water. We do have enough to give everybody what they need, right? The problem is how do we give people what they want? Right? Like
Well, that's just the
if you
difference.
gave me
Communism? I'm not really worried about wants. We can figure out a system for wants at the end of the day. But right now, I'm not worried about what people want when a ton of people globally are starving or enslaved for the capital dollar. So like I don't care if every kid in
yeah,
America wants a PlayStation 5 when kids in the Congo are enslaved to make iPhones, right? I could give a shit about the want. That's just the difference in the ideology.
yeah. Mhm. I think here we just place a different priority on how people should be treated, I guess, or like how life should be respected in a
Yeah,
way.
I wouldn't
Because
say
I don't
we
believe
place
people
a
are
different.
entitled to food and water.
Oh, you don't think people
Like I said before,
deserve?
I see humanity.
Oh no, go ahead. I just
Sorry, go
was
ahead.
gonna. I was gonna say you don't think people
I believe
deserve the necessary.
the
There's a
human
bit of a
race, the
lag
survival
between
of the
us.
human race,
Apparently,
and the
there's a lag.
Thank
You
you,
go.
Bill.
You go. There's a lag. You go.
sorry, what? Okay. Um, the survival and the advancement of the human race, I put above all. So I don't see individuals as that important versus the overall society or the overall country or population or whatever you may want to call it.
I
Um,
just don't know how you can say. I don't know how you can say that you care about the survival of the human race, but you don't believe people should have the necessary resources to survive.
okay, so if, like I said, I see humanity as a macroorganism of sorts, I would argue that one person dying is akin to a cell in your body dying. You don't mourn it, you don't really notice it, and you're fine without it. That's similar to how I see an individual human life. Of course, given that we are human beings, it's very tragic and sad,
Sure.
but
Let
I
me ask you
don't
a question.
prioritize
Let me
that
ask you a
over.
question. Here
Yeah,
comes a question. The
yeah.
advancements medically that came out of the Holocaust
Hmm.
have saved more people than died during the Holocaust. Do you now believe the Holocaust
Hmm.
to be a justified thing because it maximized the survival of the human species?
Hmm. I would say it was not a good thing because the numbers were large enough to cross like a threshold where it's no longer just one person dying or like one individual not having certain things. And it was in the context of a much larger war that killed a lot of people. I would, it's very difficult for me to figure out exactly how to answer your question here because I don't, these are situations that fall within or without the realm of normalcy. So in these situations, they suck. I don't know. We got something good out of it. And that's all I could say to that.
I gotta say, my answer to that question would have been no. Let me test your logic a little more.
I would say that would
Let's
be the
say
answer
there's
to most
one
people.
person, and this one person has blood that can cure cancer. Like just something in their blood does it. But the only way that their blood produces this chemical is by severely torturing them. Like severely. Like they need to experience the most suffering in their lives, and then their body produces this enzyme, and this enzyme cures cancer. Do you believe it justified to torture them in order? Do you believe that to be justified? We're just doing the trolley problem, but I'm not. Okay, interesting. See, I don't.
I do. If you could save that many more lives, why would it not be justified?
Because I believe.
In fact.
In fact, what? I'm worried about
in
this.
Fact, I would say even if it was like 10 or 100 people, it would still be justified.
Okay, well, interesting stance.
There is a line somewhere there, but I don't know where that line is.
I think the line should be torturing, but I'm gonna move on after that one. But you have a good day, I guess.
Thank you.
Marty, I'm scared. Okay, squad.